It was my turn to be looking at everyone dumbfounded for a moment before I could respond.
Y'all, I'm not sure what ideas you've got in your head, but we are not a united species. Earth's got like 208 sovereign nations, and I promise y'all, sure as shootin', we're fighting each other somewhere in the world right now.
Marilla blinked, and her face read that I just told her that the sun rose in the west.
That makes no sense. You're this advanced, and you haven't unified? I unified my planet, and we don't half the advances your species boasts.
Val came walking over, drying her hair with a spare sweater.
Did I walk in on something?
I was scrambling, trying to figure out how to explain.
Look, humans didn't all advance together. Our planet has tons of impediments to that. First off, 3/4 of it's water. Last I remember learning, but it ain't just that. We've got 7 continents, scattered islands all over the place, and natural barriers that cut us off from each other. So everyone just, sorta, came up on their own till we started running into each other again. We had language barriers as well, over time.
Azoku's eyes narrowed.
7 continents? My own world has but 2. I'm not sure about the rest of you.
Everyone was now starting to get in on it, and it wouldn't get explained at all.
Look, okay, let's back the train up a minute. On about 65 million years ago, Earth only had the one continent, which we call Pangea. Humans weren't even a thing yet, but an asteroid struck our planet, big one, and it caused what's called a tectonic shift, if I'm remembering high school right. The continent broke apart and started drifting, till we're where we're at now. There was a ton of smoke and shit that got into the sky, caused an ice age, and it's out of it that humans evolved.
Marilla was weighing everything I said, but she seemed to believe me.
And when did humans evolve?
Well, if YouTube's to be believed, we showed up about 250,000 years ago, but it'd be a while before we really got off the ground. Got a talkin' round about 50,000 years after that, and it was off to the races.
I shrugged, not really sure if they would understand the sheer amount of time involved.
Your entire species is only 250,000 years old? My own species predates you by close to 1,000,000 years, and we're nowhere near you technologically.
Marilla wasn't even arguing now, just assessing, measuring, and counting. I shrugged.
Look, y'all, I'm not an expert on this. I know what I was taught in school, and Val's got me beat on that note, on account of actually going to college. We're getting away from the point. Earth ain't nearly united. We've been fighting each other for our whole history. And yeah, we'll mostly link up on the alien thing, but we'll still also be fighting each other, not even just militarily.
Azoku came back in, his tail swishing back and forth.
What sort of fighting will your people engage aside from military conquest?
I mean, we literally have professional fighters. Boxing, martial arts, UFC, various styles of wrestling, shooting competitions. Hell, cooking competitions are a common thing on Earth.
Might as well mention the not hurting people stuff.
And then we'll compete at video games, survival games. Once watched a couple of army buddies of mine work out how to play an advanced strategy game in the middle of the desert with rocks for pieces, and whatever leftover stuff they had around camp.
Traig laughed.
I like these humans. Wait, how do you compete at cooking?
Val smiled and took her moment to step in.
Well, it depends. In something like a cook-off, everyone's making the same dish, but it's about who can make it better than the other competitors. Then you have competitions where all the contestants get a group of ingredients to use, and it's not only about cooking well, but who can make the best use of the ingredients, the most inventive dish. I used to compete myself. I was an athlete, and good enough to be heading to the Olympics if I hadn't gotten pregnant in college. I competed in a broad spectrum of events called track and field. This included 100, 200, and 300-meter sprints, hurdles at 110 meters, relay races where we run to hand off a baton to our teammate, who takes over running to next teammate. Then you've got longer races, 800 meters, 1,500 meters, on up. Then there's high jump, long jump, triple jump, pole vault. Then we have throwing competitions with javelin throws, hammer toss, discus, and shot put. I was really good in javelin and hammer toss.
Val looked wistfully into the night. Marilla jumped in.
That's a lot of competitions for just this Olympics.
Oh, I'm not done. Then there's the marathon, a 26-mile run. And finally, the decathlon and heptathlon. I wanted to be the first woman to officially compete in the decathlon. It's 10 of those events, essentially back to back. And that is one Olympic category. There are dozens more events, with the greatest athletes from all over the world competing against one another to see who the best is. There isn't even really a cash prize. It's all for the prestige. And none of that covers the stuff that goes on in the Winter Olympics. Ooh, I know something.
Val called up Annabelle and asked her to bring up the footage for the gold medal winning performance for pairs figure skating from the last Olympics. Annabelle shrugged and put up the video. Marilla watched two humans in the middle of the Olympic Stadium and showed everyone as they executed their performance. At first, Azoku sniggered. Then, eventually, he was watching with rapt attention like everyone else about a minute in, when the male performer sent his female companion spinning into the air while moving, effortlessly directing her back onto her feet as she came back down. Shin was the first to speak.
Wait, when you kicked me, were you holding back?
Yeah, I didn't want to injure you, just get you to stop fighting me.
She looked sheepishly at him as she said it.
I've never been hit that hard in my entire life.
And Shin hopped off, taking some leftover snacks with him. Hoda finally decided to join the conversation, if only briefly.
I am one of strongest of the women in my species, and I could not do that. How long do they train for this?
Val looked her in the eyes, tearing up a bit.
Our whole lives, to get even one chance to stand in that stadium.
I startled when my wristband beeped, and when I hit the button, it wasn't Annabelle, but Ravajatik who came up.
Survivor Keith, we need to have a private word.
The message cut off, and my privacy mode engaged with a little infinity symbol where the countdown clock was.
Welp, apparently our esteemed host wants a word. This'll be fun. Val, can you finish up the questions and answers, please? You're doing a way better job than me at it anyway.
I headed off, touching Hearth lightly on the arm as I passed his dormant form, and down toward the waterfall until I heard the beep again and hit the button. Ravajatik was there, but it was different. He was in an office of some kind, his own I'd imagine, and he didn't have the usual screens going behind him. His entire demeanor had shrunk.
May we dispense with the veneers we wear for the show?
I smirked.
I'm game if you are.
He did catch the joke and gave a little alien laugh.
Your species has diverted the games a great deal, and apparently, you are preparing to do so more. And now, species are approaching you, rather than you having to go out to convince them of your intentions. I applaud you humans, truly. No species that we have known in the history of our dominion has shown the sort of cleverness or determination you humans have. The Emperor has taken notice of you.
I waited for the tacked-on bit, but it didn't come.
And what does the Emperor want?
Ravajatik sat back.
To relieve your burden, he is willing to declare humanity as the victors of pre-warp survival on merit.
Val could go home. She could get back to Cassie, her daughter, and not still be trapped here. But
what happens to the other species if we take the deal?
They will be taken over by the Kathrall Dominion, by the Emperor's command, but you...
I shook my head.
No deal.
Ravajatik exhaled, crossing his lower arms, laying one arm along the crossed ones, and stroked a hand over his face with the fourth. It wasn't surprise. It was just inevitability.
I said you would respond as such when the Emperor spoke to me about this. He will ask why you would not take this deal. Your entire species ascended in one simple decision.
I gave my word, and I won't abandon them. But what about a counteroffer?
I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound, right? Ravajatik started laughing. Not the controlled, forced laughter I'd seen previously during broadcasts, but genuine belly laughing. He even seemed to start doing whatever the Kathrall of honking is as he lost control.
A counteroffer, you say? Oh, I would love to hear this one, Keith.
Time to bite down hard.
We stay in the game, and you come up with 3 challenges for me. You can make them as hard your Emperor thinks is amenable for what I want for completing them. For each challenge, I want one species back from the Telesh, the Migrine, and the Aqualians.
There was no laughter, no movement from the game master. He just sat there, staring at me for nearly a minute before speaking again.
You really meant you would protect them all.
I took my arm out of the sling and for the first time properly stretched it, if slowly.
In one of the founding documents of my nation, it reads, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that chief among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Now, most my people wouldn't take it this far, but they ain't me. I will protect them all. I will find a way to beat your emperor's game, and I will find a way to free the others your dominion has enslaved. This is my war, and it's done when I win, or when I draw my last breath.
Ravaj Tik really didn't have much else to say, other than that he would take my counteroffer to the emperor and signed off, the privacy mode ending as the holo closed. There really wasn't much else to say, so I was standing there by myself at night. I looked up toward the bluff, seeing the barest of glows from up above. Between fires for the smokers, the stone kiln we'd changed over to an oven, and the actual campfire, we were starting to be more noticeable. However, this was the first unstructured time I'd had since arriving on this planet. Everything had been a rush out of the gate, the next step, the crisis, the next week, threatening an intergalactic empire twice inside of a week, rescues, explanations, and even my own internal issues. Honestly, I just needed some time for myself, and this was the best time I had to do so. I let Hearth know to cut our connection and decided to take a stroll. Sure, the trills would still sense my mind, especially since the neural link, but their part was done now, and I wanted whatever time to myself I could get. He'd already relayed the conversation with the game master, so whatever the reaction on the bluff was, it could wait. I took a walk in the woods, looking up. Another that I hadn't done was this, stargazing. Sure, I'd seen the stars and the moon, but I hadn't really seen them. It was different, and finding a suitable climbing tree, I scrambled on up top to get a better look beyond the tree line. The climb was a bit more challenging with one arm, but I managed. The moon was full, and the stars were all shown at full luster, and for the first time, I just stood, viewing out. It really was a beautiful world. I chuckled, remembering an early scene from Men in Black, when Kay's partner talked about how they never just looked at the stars anymore, and I was now standing on another world. I realized I wasn't even looking for Earth. Haphazardly, I was trying to draw constellations in the sky between the most noticeable stars. It was something Grandma loved to do, and it just felt great to finally have the chance to just relax and look out. Jesus, 1 week. It felt like forever ago since I'd arrived here. So much had happened. Feeling a wistfulness, I reached into the pocket of my jacket and pulled out a wooden flute. I'd whittled together while Val had been running around. I smiled, remembering the Cherokee reservation I'd visited as a scout. They were gearing up for a powwow, and we'd signed up to stay there and help out. At the time, I was upset because other kids got to go help with food, horses, and the other fun stuff, while I got stuck with a bunch of old guys whittling away to make souvenirs for sale. In the end, I had a great time, as they all had a ton of stories, and I made so many flutes like this. I'd made it when I got sick of skinning and braiding bark for ropes and needed a change of pace that occupied my hands. It had 5 finger holes, and I'd tied on a grouse feather with a strap of leather from the cougar hide. I started playing it, at first just kind of fiddling to make sure it was in order, and once I was sure, I remembered some songs I knew how to play on it. I Stand Alone from Quest for Camelot went ringing out over the woods. I remembered when Pops found a copy on VHS, and I played it and replayed it so often the tape wore out. I still owned both a Blu-ray of it as well as a digital copy. Then I played Looking Through Your Eyes, and my thoughts strayed to Val. I was falling in love with her quickly, and it wasn't hard to see why. Sure, she was beautiful, but she was someone who'd overcome so much and had never lost her passion. She was direct, didn't play games, and was understanding. I could depend on her easily enough, and we'd had literal days of just the two of us. And then I felt ashamed. It wasn't about Kendra, though. It was Cassie, Val's daughter. I had stared the chance for her to get back home right in the eyes, with no threat to Earth, to back there with her, and shut it down without consideration or input from anyone. She was likely to be angry, and I couldn't knock her for that. She'd be in the right to be pissed. I may have potentially cost her her ride home, and all because I couldn't bend on my stance. But if I did pull everyone in, only to then screw off home and leave them to their fates, then I couldn't live with myself. Cassie had to be scared as well, seeing the threats that were out there for her mom, the fights where she could die at any moment, that ever-present threat that she could die in a moment.
God, Pop. What do I even do? It's just so big. It's too big. The fates of dozens of species, Earth, this whole thing. I see a path forward, but it all just keeps piling up. One thing after another.
I heard a beep from my wristband and looked at it. There was almost no chance Ravajatik could have gotten back to me this fast, and that only left one other. I pushed the button, and up popped Annabelle. By the way she was able to look directly at me, I had to guess there was some sort of vision enhancement to the cameras or whatever they were using.
Good evening, Keith. I know it's late, and you probably want to get back to camp for some sleep, but I was hoping you might be up for an interview, though I do understand if you say no.
I wiped my eyes real quick and chuckled.
Why not, Miss Annabelle?
She launched directly into the heart of it.
So, according to the conversations at camp, it seems you were given an offer by Ravajatik and turned it down. Could you maybe give us some insight into your thought process here?
Sure.
I shrugged, trading flute for pipe and lighting it as I gave my response.
Well, the deal was pretty simple. We get declared the winners by merit, but everyone else loses and gets taken by the Kathrall Dominion to serve as slaves. I said no deal. I figure some on Earth are kinda upset at me on that point, but I couldn't go breaking my word to these folks, and the others that are now looking to join us on the back of our offering to shelter them.
She nodded in feigned meaningfulness, waiting for me to finish.
And how does this decision fit in with your overall strategy?
Well, I'd sort of talked about it already.
My strategy, as you call it, is to break the game, and this deal means it's working. Oh, I expect them to come barreling up my ass for it, but what are they gonna do? Make me survive more? Anything they do is acknowledging that I'm right, and as a group, we can handle whatever they're dishing out. Apologies for the language.
She quirked an eyebrow at the apology.
It's fine. You're under a lot of pressure there, but I want to focus on that term. Break the game. How do you intend to break it?
I already have, Miss Annabelle. Just bringing on the Rathani started it, sure. But add in the others, it's just caused the cracks to widen. When our hosts put out the rules, the whole thing's based on a single outcome. Be the last species surviving. Now, of course, they can't just take out teams, or they'd show their hand and the game stop working. So what happens if we just don't fight each other? What if we all throw in together, to give us the best chance to survive overall? How does the game end if the players stop playing?
I took a moment to blow smoke a chain of little smoke rings.
Should also say that wasn't the only part. I did put up a counteroffer.
Annabelle startled at that one.
You made a counteroffer? What was it?
I slowly let out a mass of smoke that wrapped around in the air. I'd done it before, and the look made me look just a touch demonic.
Pretty simple. I challenge the Emperor to give me 3 challenges. For each I succeed, I get back one of the eliminated teams, and their world gets spared till the game ends, at least.
This was a thin blade to be standing on. By making the deal public, I couldn't be ignored. And more importantly, I could try to sway the crowd. Just like gladiators in Rome could become so popular that they could make changes in Rome, or just their own condition by becoming a crowd favorite. The blade, however, was in the possibility of pissing off the Emperor by airing it publicly. Annabelle took a slow breath before continuing.
Why try to get back eliminated competitors? And what are the challenges you'll be facing?
I shrugged.
Well, to the challenges, I don't know. I only just made the offer, so I gotta wait to see if the Emperor can be convinced to go with it. As to why, it's pretty simple, I reckon. I want them to stay free, and I don't want their homeworlds to be assaulted. I want every one of us to go home from this. We can win, we just gotta work together and stay the course. Really, the world's been pretty agreeable as yet, so the survival end's been work. But nothing compared to Earth so far, even considering the cougar attack.
On the subject of the attack, I see that you don't have your arm in the sling right now. How is the healing process going on that?
She was calling attention to the viewers as she said it. I stretched my arm out for a moment in demonstration as I replied,
It's coming along well, all things considered. It's still sore, that and the ribs, But really, it's doing pretty well. Sling was mostly to keep my shoulder in position to make sure it's lined up right. Now, I'm just working on the physical therapy end, which'll take a bit. But all in all, coming along nicely.
Annabelle nodded again and then put a hand up to her earpiece.
I'm sorry, Keith, but we'll need to cut this interview a bit short. You may want to get back to camp quickly. There's a fight breaking out.
As quickly as I could, I cut off the screen and began scrambling down the tree. I closed in, starting to hear the commotion up above. I came up the rise to see Val being held back by Azoku, Ragnar, and Greltha, while Marilla was on the ground being tended by her guard. And if I was seeing it right, the three were losing the fight to keep Val restrained.
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. You can also support us by hitting the thanks button or becoming a channel member. Your generosity helps us bring you more stellar stories. Every bit counts. Thanks a bunch.